Ever since James Gunn was announced as co-CEO of DC Studios, his name has been at the end of every single DC fan's tongue. Love him or hate him, you've been tagging him on Twitter, Instagram, because you know he reads every tweet with his name tagged on it. And James Gunn has a master plan, but I don't think you understand what the plan is. He announced DC Universe, a soft reboot of the DC Extended Universe, the old DCEU, Superman Legacy, Brave and the Bold, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and beyond. And I'm sure James will do the best job of his ability to create a beautiful DC Universe IP and franchise for the general audience, children, and families. But he knows the future of DC live action is in DC Elseworlds. Of course, he announced with DC Universe something that will be films, television, streaming, and gaming. A very, very ambitious plan. Now, he's moving forward with DC Universe, this kind of central universe, because it's what WB Discovery, WB Pictures, and David Zaslav believes that's where the money is. And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. And as I say, I believe that James will do the best of his ability to create a great universe. But that's not where James Gunn's true focus is. Because James Gunn believes that the future of DC live action is in DC Elseworlds. That's why he set up DC Elseworlds. Now, there's been a very interesting rumor about a Huntress Asian language written and directed martial arts movie for DC Elseworlds. I believe this rumor is true. James Gunn has spoken about different genres, and that's the secret to stopping superhero fatigue, and I agree with him. Imagine a Huntress Chinese language martial arts movie written and directed by a foreign language creative, and more things like that. It doesn't mean DC Elseworlds would just have foreign language. I'm telling you, it would be a very, diverse kind of place for DC content. And I find this a very interesting idea. And this is what James Gunn's grand plan is. The other day when the rumor was announced that, WB want to go with the Batman cinematic universe from Matt Reeves, everyone was saying that DC and WB were hedging their bets. Basically, everyone was saying this is their plan B, just in case James Gunn's DC universe fails. I do not believe that's true. I believe there's a lot of smart asses making videos, making posts on Twitter, believing this, that it's a lack of belief in James Gunn. No, 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 no. James Gunn is the one who wants the Batman cinematic universe as part of DC Elseworlds. He's the one who wants Todd Phillips to expand his DC Black Label Joker universe. James Gunn's the one who wants this Huntress Asian foreign language martial arts movie. His focus is on building out DC Elseworlds. Yes, it would be amazing to have a brilliant, thriving DCU. But he has bigger ambitions. And those bigger ambitions are at DC Elseworlds. And I think he has big plans for DC Elseworlds. It will not be a franchise. It will be a platform of a mixture of franchises and IPs. Different franchises in one DC Elseworlds. You should read DC Elseworlds comics, and then you'll understand what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about this foreign language Huntress movie. I'm talking about the Batman cinematic universe. I'm talking about Todd Phillips' Black Label cinematic universe. Even maybe Tanashi Coates' Black Clark Kent movie and beyond. It wouldn't surprise me if James Mangold's Swamp Thing movie is also going to be part of DC Elseworlds and not DC Universe. So there's a lot of potential here to make this work. And this is part of his plan that really excites me. Because when you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's become so redundant, focusing on the Easter eggs, the cameos, the extended universe, not the extended universe, the shared universe. And we're doing the same thing at DC with DC Universe. That's exactly what DC Universe is going to be. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me. James Gunn is very committed to DC Universe, but he's only doing it because that's what Zaslav and the studio believe. That's where they believe the money is. But James Gunn, as an artist, as a writer-director, can see the potential in a bold, thriving, diverse DC Elseworlds. And this type of thinking really, really excites me. I think it's very interesting and very bold. And this is what I want to see from a co-CEO of DC Studios in the creative element. Bringing in, a diverse range of writers and directors to fill out this DC Elseworlds, like a foreign language Huntress movie. Bring that on, inject that in my veins. There's going to be lots of bold, different and diverse worlds in DC Elseworlds. Now, for the people like typing down right now, oh no, it's just basically a place for, Matt Reeves the Batman and Todd Phillips Joker 2, and that's the only reason they called it DC Elseworlds. No, James Gunn has bold plans for DC Elseworlds. I can exclusively confirm that to you. Don't doubt it. I'm normally very right with these hunches. It is that rumor of the foreign language martial arts Huntress movie, written and directed by a foreign language director, that's really got me thinking. And James Gunn has said some very interesting things about DC Elseworlds in the past. He said you would need a better pitch, a bolder pitch, to get green lit for DC Elseworlds than you would for DC Universe. He's even hinted that it's going to be a bolder take, a place for auteurs, a place for, bold, interesting storytelling. This is exactly what DC needs. And whether you're here for basically, unless, whether you're here for Zack Snyder or James Gunn or whatever it is, at the end of the day, I think this is the way to go. I think this is a bold plan. This is a good plan. And I'd love to know in the comments what kind of Elseworld stories and characters and movies and maybe even streaming shows, animation and gaming would you like to see in DC Elseworlds? Because we haven't really spoken on this platform at Movies TV Mad about DC Elseworlds. We've spoken a lot about DC Universe, and that's great. And as I say, I believe that James Gunn is committed to filling out that franchise for the general audience and families and children, but he knows the future is in DC Elseworlds, basically standalone DC visions. And that's the kind of thing that I want to see, because it really is kind of with the legacy of Warner Brothers Pictures as well, just making great movies. It's, maybe you can have trilogies of those visions, but it's not going to be DC Elseworlds is not going to be interconnected. Each separate universe will be connected while they're doing films or streaming shows or TV shows or animation about that kind of film or streaming or TV show or animation. But the whole thing will not be connected. It will be DC Universe will actually be connected. But DC Elseworlds will be something very bold and very different. And this is part of James Gunn's very ambitious plan. So I believe that James has got some very good ideas for DC. And I don't think you should write him off just yet. As I've said before, I do not blame him for the failure of the Flash movie or the other movies. But there are a lot of agendas in our fandom, and I understand it. And it's James Gunn's plan in the next 5 years. It has to be his achievement in the next 5 to 10 years that he brings the fans together. Not every corner of DC Universe, not every corner of DC fandom in the DC Universe is going to like the same things. So if you've got great movies in DC Universe that are connected, a great Superman, a great Batman, but over at DC Elseworlds, you've got all these different titles and they're not connected, but they've got these bold takes of these bold auteurs that are just about leaving film school from other countries. Now that for me is a very bold and exciting vision. I think that's very exciting. And I would really like to know what you think about that. I think it's great. I think it's brilliant. And I'm going to really, really look forward to James doing that. But this is his plan. This is part of his plan. I believe he's going forward with this plan. And don't be surprised if James Gunn himself writes and directs a DC Elseworlds movie eventually. Once he's done Peacemaker, once he's finished Superman Legacy, and, he's got a lot of work to do. But I think his main plan with DC Elseworlds is bringing people in from A24, from different countries, young writer-directors just leaving film school. And as I say, it's a very ambitious plan. And if it works, it's bye-bye MCU, hello DC Elseworlds, hello DC Universe. All of a sudden, we've got this huge DC franchise, both at DC Universe and DC Elseworlds. And that's very bold and very exciting. And as I say, inject it into my veins. Because yes, we can criticize James sometimes, but at the end of the day, we have not seen James's vision for DC Studios yet. We've heard talk, but we haven't seen his movies. We can't judge him until we see his movies and his content. But some of you are already judging him because you have an agenda. Because you don't want James Gunn to be running DC Studios. You want the Snyderverse to continue and you're angry that it's not. But James Gunn is not to blame for that. He's not the one who drove Snyder away from the DC Universe. The DCEU was fated to die a slow, painful death from Man of Steel. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Too many decision makers. Now we've got Gunn's ideas alone, and I think that's brilliant. Whoever came in to have to deal with this clusterfuck of these remaining DCEU movies this year and at the end of last year with Black Adam was going to have a hard job. They tried to use Gunn as an influencer to sell movies that he really doesn't believe in, and that was always going to be a hard task for David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Peter Safran, whose name as producer actually is on some of these movies. But we start afresh. We give them another go. We give them another chance. Listen, I want Blue Beetle and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom to be successful for myself, for the studio, and for the fans who believe in every DC, all the DC hype for the next project. I want you to have, bragging rights over the MCU. I really do. So, as I said yesterday, I'm hoping and praying that Blue Beetle is a great movie. It certainly sounds like a very interesting movie. Now, as I say, normally I get around 60 to 70 views. Unfortunately, my Blue Beetle video yesterday only got 29 to 30 views at this point. I expect it to jump up to 40, 45, but it just shows you if I'm averaging 60 or 70 views, but a Blue Beetle video is only getting half of that, that shows you there is a lack of interest in that character. Because let me explain something to you. When you're building out a universe like the MCU, you've got to start with the hard hitters. The problem Marvel Studios and Disney had from the very beginning, they didn't have ownership. They didn't have the rights to Spider-Man and the X-Men. So they had to start with Iron Man. But they cast one of the most famous actors in the world to garner attention. And they made a great first few movies and it worked. But the problem that DC have, we've got this small character. Blue Beetle is the first character in DC Universe, but not the first DC Universe movie, as I was trying to explain the nuance of that yesterday. But because originally Blue Beetle was a DCEU movie, they hadn't earned the right yet to have the smaller characters because their bigger characters didn't exactly work out with the general audience. I love their Superman, I love Zack's Batman, but it didn't really work out. The plan was mishmash in the end because too many people were interfering with what Snyder wanted to do. You need to, when you're building out these universes, you need to earn the right to have lesser movies about lesser characters. And it's very, very difficult. Now, when James Gunn gets started, he starts off with Superman, then Batman, then Supergirl. And, you know, Wonder Woman Paradise Lost, and hopefully a Wonder Woman movie. A Green Lantern TV show, hopefully a Green Lantern movie as well. So when he's built all that out, then you earn the right for the smaller characters. Now, a great example of this is Smallville. So the first few seasons, the first 3 or 4 seasons, Smallville didn't introduce any other DC characters. They weren't building out their Justice League at first. They were earning the right to become a superhero show because they wasn't at first. Then they introduced Bart Allen, Arthur Curry, and different DC characters like that. Zatanna, I could go on. Black Canary, Green Arrow. Amazing. The only characters we didn't see in Smallville were Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince. It was amazing. But they had to earn the right for this, you know, this amazing DC universe that Smallville ended up building out. So their final 3 seasons were literally kind of a pre-Superman Justice League show. But they first earned the right to do that. And I think this is what any universe has to do. You have to earn your right to get to your Justice League movie. You have to earn your right to get to your Justice League Dark movie. And that's what James Gunn's attempting to do. Yes, Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, but it's not the first DCU movie because James Gunn had nothing to do with that movie, as we went over yesterday, and I won't be going over it again today. And so we have a very interesting situation. I think Blue Beetle won't be a disaster, won't be a great success, but I think it will get good reviews. And I think people will respect the movie for what it's trying to do, hopefully. Hopefully, I mean, you know, I'm not Nostradamus. I haven't seen the movie. I can only read between the lines. It's clear that this director is very, very passionate about his own culture and pushing his own culture in this movie. What's going to be vital with Blue Beetle is that while you're doing that, that it's a really epic, entertaining movie, and we can have great fun with Blue Beetle and these characters. And we're a wait to see if that actually happens. But yes, I believe that James Gunn has got a master plan. I do believe he has a great plan for DC. And me personally, I'm very excited about that. I know a lot of you dislike James Gunn. I know a lot of you wouldn't lose any sleep if Warner Brothers sold DC or if Warner Brothers was brought out by somebody else. But the truth is, it's a non-starter. I've explained this before. David Zaslav came in to do a difficult gig. James Gunn came in to do a difficult gig. They're trying to fix what was broken before them. And it hasn't been easy. And they're going to have to continue making difficult decisions. Shelving Batgirl was uncomfortable. It was difficult. But ultimately, it was the correct decision financially. As devastated as I am with what happened with Henry, bringing him back and then not bringing him back, at the end of the day, I think probably for the freshness and the future of DC, I think it's probably the right decision. Am I gutted every time I watch Black Adam, a movie I really enjoy, see that post-credit scene and see the potential in the future of at least a Man of Steel 2? Yes, we could have had a Man of Steel 2 movie instead of BVS in 2016. And they got nervous because of the box office from the first Man of Steel movie, and they didn't do it. Cavill's Superman died from that very moment. That is not on James Gunn. That is not on David Zaslav. That's on previous leaderships. And we've discussed that at great length before. But now we have a future plan. Some of you will keep on fighting for the Snyderverse. And I support that fight. As long as it's clean. I saw someone this morning on Twitter, you know, garbage talking, shit talking James's movies. Why don't you just focus on what you love? Why are you so focused on this guy's movies? A lot of people love what James Gunn does. So instead of talking about what you hate, why don't you talk about what you love?